right, here on the Final Five, we've been following the last 6 months of the Trump administration, and there are 3 major topics that voters are concerned most about. So we thought there was one person who we could bring in to give us the pulse of the people, and that person would be friend of the show, Cliff Young from Ipsos, up late with me tonight here on the show. Great to see you again, as always.
It's great to be here.
I broke some numbers down very carefully there, but you have done that even more so. First things first, though, let's talk about where we are. We are far removed from any elections at this point, middle of the summer. In the polling industry, is the summer a downtime?
No, we're doing lots of polling. We're leading up to the midterms, right? And we have lots of clients that are worried about the world. We're doing lots of polling.
And in terms of these topics that we're about to talk about, I mean, there's so many things that don't change.
They don't change, but I think the big issue coming up right now is tariffs. Because that has an economic impact, has an impact potentially on people's pocketbooks. And so there's a lot of attention on it right now.
Okay, let's break down some of the new numbers you have. We're going to start first things first with the biggest problems facing America. And as we take a look at the first batch of numbers here, here we go. What do we see? Yeah,
so we didn't look at the trend this time. We just kind of took the latest cut. We asked people, we asked Americans, what are the most important issues? It has been the economy here, the second most important issue at 15%. This has been the #1 issue for the last year or so. Donald Trump won on it, but look at this. At 25%, #1, we have political extremism and threats to democracy. What's going on? Lots of friction. Now, lots of friction relative to tariffs, lots of friction relative to immigration, and these numbers have shot up.
And last time you came in, that's the one thing that struck me was the whole idea of extremism, threats to democracy, which is something Democrats ran on heavily last year, and it didn't seem to resonate. So now we're seeing it come to fruition.
Yeah, part of it is actually the economy getting better, and sort of other issues popping up, and that's part of what we're seeing. But yes, you're totally right. This issue, political extremism, was only a #2 issue. The #1 issue during the elections was the economy.
All right, let's talk approval ratings, which is always important for any president, whether they like it or not. And look, I mean, when you start, there's always a little bit of a honeymoon period, which we saw with President Trump. Now we're getting into a territory. But look, when you're still around 50%, that's more or less what you can hope for, I guess, in these divided times, right?
Yeah, he's in a really good place. Trump is in a really good place. You know, we took different aggregators. These are aggregators. These are websites that take all the polls out there. We're not looking at any given poll. It's not just the Ipsos poll. We look at different ones, and it's about 44%, 45% around there. That's the range. That's a good place for Trump. It's better than 2017, and it's right within the historic average.
I want to ask, though, because you point out that the last update came in on July 16th. There's been a lot that's happened over the last week or so. Do we think that the headlines with Epstein, is that going to have take a hit, or are people entrenched enough to believe what they want to believe?
Yeah, we're still not quite sure about Epstein. We're waiting on the numbers. We've done some specific polling on Epstein, and it looks like it's a pox on all your houses. It basically is elites colluding with elites. They don't see it's like as if it were a Trump issue or a Democratic issue.
Let's move on. The next batch, consumer confidence. Why is this always an important metric?
Well, it predicts future behavior, future purchase behavior. It's an important sort of leading indicator for the economy. And what we really wanted to show here is not the overall trend over the years. We're kind of in a middling place right now. We wanted to show younger Americans. This is in orange. They've kind of, they were at the highest point relative to other age groups in America. They've taken a dip over time. Part of that's inflation. Part of that is just the unrealized part of the Trump agenda in terms of the economy. We think it's an important indicator looking forward.
When we talk about the younger voters here, and that coincides with January, is this related to the fact that you had younger voters voting more for President Trump than we've seen for Republicans?
Yeah, exactly. We're seing their optimism here, right? They voted for Trump.
And there it goes.
And they're not seeing things, right? They're not seeing it sort of pay out. They still have student loans. They're not sure about tariffs. They think it's inflationary in scope. And so, yeah, a lot of trepidation, a lot of unease among younger Americans.
All right, let's talk about tariffs right now and the perception of those and how they're working with voters. But you're not seeing much of a change?
No, we're not really. We wanted to show that, so we basically we asked lots of questions on tariffs. These are just 2 questions on tariffs, and we wanted to look at 2 points in time, earlier in the year in March, and then now, a recent poll. And what it basically shows is overall, Americans are worried about tariffs. Increasing tariffs on imported goods will do more harm than good. A majority of Americans, a slight majority, but a majority of Americans believe that. Why do they believe that? Because they think it induces inflation. and making it more difficult to make ends meet.
All right, let's talk about one more batch, which has to do with how people think the policies are going to pay off in the long term.
Yeah, and this is ultimately just, we wanted to look at the party break, and what we see is red is obviously Republicans, blue is obviously Democrats. We see huge differences. The Republicans are very much behind Donald Trump's agenda. Donald Trump's move to shake up the economy will pay off in the long run. Only 38% of Americans overall believe that, but 80% of Republicans. That base is oh so important for him right now.
Just a headline here, when you say 2 in 5 think Trump's overall economic policies will pay off in the long term, is 2 in 5, is that good? Is that good from a polling perspective?
Probably not. We want to always be above 50%.
Gotcha,
We're in a democracy, right? But as you can see here, once again, 80% of Republicans think it's good. At least for now, in the short term, that's important for Trump. That's given him resiliency. That is his base in Republicans.
All right, Cliff Young joining us here on the Final Five. As always, great to see you again.
Thank you.
We appreciate you, and we're back with more on your Final Five after this.